Hello everyone, Randy Harrington here. I put this video together today wanting to talk about a subject that Shane has uncovered out at the 400, and I think it's worth making a video over because to me it's so fascinating. But as you know, the title says, holes being dug by a juvenile Sasquatch, and I believe that in this YouTube video, I will prove almost 100% that it is indeed juvenile Sasquatch, Bigfoot, that are digging these holes. So let's get into it. And of course, it starts with paying attention. Uh, I'm hoping that people can see by the videos that I put out how much thought we put into what we're presenting. Especially when it comes to being a partner with Shane out at the 400. Uh, I want to do it justice by thinking everything through and thorough before presenting it. Because I don't want somebody to come in behind me and be able to pick things apart and say, "Wow, you really didn't do your homework here. You glossed over the details here," and that's very amateurish. So that's why we try to cross all the T's and dot all the I's and run all of our evidence, through the ringer before we present it because we want to present a good, solid case in what we're trying to tell you. So, when it came to these holes, Shane brought this to my attention, a few years back. He said that he had been finding them at the 400. So, it took me noticing things with Shane that, you know, he pays attention to the details. Uh, for instance, there will be a time when he was hiking where he would come out of a hike off the ridge and there would be a rock leaning up on the base of a tree, and he'll say, "Well, I didn't notice that before." And then he will go into his video and look at it, and sure enough, as he was walking up that trail, you can see that there was no rock leaning up against that tree, but on his way back down, there was a nice big flat rock that was placed up against that tree on his way in and out. So he's learned that you have to pay attention to the small things. Uh, a lot of people would gloss over stuff like that. But needless to say, that is forged, in the iron is forged in the fire by going through it and learning it as you go. So paying attention to details, that's how he uncovered these holes that appeared to be possibly dug with sticks. So, 6 or 7 years ago, he found one and he just passed it off as, well, you know what? That's something to pay attention to. And over time, come to find out, he finds these holes multiple times. And they seem to be within a short range of a rainfall, say like within 24 hours, 36 hours after a rainfall. It doesn't mean that it's not happening at other times. It's just that that's when he's been noticing them. So, and one of the ways that you can tell, because the holes, as the dirt was dug out of these holes, there's a difference of what the soil looks like when rain hits it, and turns it into mud. These piles outside of the holes were dry. So it means they were dug out and allowed to dry. So that means it happened since it rained 24 hours before. So, and that just becomes part of being a good investigator. What is that telling you when you see that? And so to be able to put the picture together uh, is a benefit. And also these sticks are left either in the hole or right next to the hole. And the sticks, you can see a lot of the times still has dirt caked up on one end of the stick where it was used as a tool to dig with. So very interesting. But it started out with just being holes, and so it's just something to pay attention to. You can't. What we know now is not what we knew at the beginning. What we knew at the beginning was it was just something interesting. Let's pay attention to these and let's see where this takes us. So here we go. So here's one of the holes. Still got the stick in it. Uh, clear, clear, clearly that is a hole with a stick in it. I mean, you can infer all you want as what did it, who did it, is somebody playing a trick on me? But the fact is, there's a hole and there's a stick in it. All right, so here's another one. You can see it's not a round hole, but it's more of a scraping with the stick still there. And this was from 6 or 7 years ago. So just an interesting uh, piece of something happening that is worth paying attention to. So let's go to the next picture. Now here's a stick with some holes being dug, and there's Shane holding the stick up. And here's another one. Now this one you can actually see the pile of dirt on the bottom side of that hole. When the hole was cleared out, the pile was left there to dry out. So, it's starting to show a pattern here, starting to be pretty interesting. So there was a time when, you have to say to yourself, well, this can't be, if this is a Bigfoot related incident, it can't be exclusive to the 400 location. I mean, it has to be happening somewhere else. So, me always taking in information from other reports, I was listening to Sasquatch Chronicles, and there was a report, and I took a capture of it. So, in case you want to listen to it yourself, episode 515. It was from a British lady who was over in the California on some business back in 1989, and she tells an interesting story. Of course, I don't know if it's true or not, and there's parts of the story that I may not believe, but I only bring this up because she claims to have seen a family of these Bigfoot creatures out at the edge of the ocean, and the male was in the water pulling up kelp or seaweed and throwing it back up on shore to the female. And she claims that there was two little ones that were digging in the sand, digging. So that aspect alone caught my attention. So here's something being reported from 1989 that includes two little ones digging holes. That's why it would interest me. Whether it's true or not, it just seems like an odd thing for someone to just throw in if she didn't see it. So that's my take on it, and it's interesting, and it certainly fits what the picture I'm trying to paint with what we've got going on out at the 400. All right, now here's where things start to get a little interesting. It goes from being just these holes being dug to a couple of years ago, maybe even last year, Shane finds some new 6-inch tracks. We were very excited to have what appeared to be a new young one in this family unit. So uh, there's a picture of the track, 6 inches long, very, very tiny track, and it leads back into this brush to a hole, another hole with a stick laying in the hole. So this is the first time we go from, and we had speculated before that indeed these holes were related to juvenile activity, because the only time Shane had been finding holes over that 6, 7, 8 year period was when certain tracks were within this family unit that were within 5 to 7 inches. So, so we started kind of laying out the probability that it involved the youngest of the family members, because that's the only time they had been found, when correlating with smaller footprints being found within this family unit. So now we're starting to put a picture together. And this is the first time that Shane was able to follow these 6 inch tracks all the way back into the thick scrub, and it lead to a hole being dug with a stick still there. So that is brilliant. All right, so here we go. The evidence starts to get a little deeper. Here was a hole that was found that has what appears to be some knuckle imprints. And I'm going to circle it in yellow right there next to the stick. Looks like something had its knuckles on the ground while it was digging. So now we're starting to add second layers to what may be going on here. So Shane actually put his knuckles, next to that, and they're a little bit different size. I wish I had a picture of him comparing his knuckles to the imprints, but they are a little bit different size than his knuckles. So let's go to the next picture. And here's a closer look of what appears to be three knuckles on the end of a fist, circled in yellow. No red circles here, just yellow. Uh, but anyways, so yes, so that's right next to the hole, right next to the stick. So I guess we got lucky that occasionally it does put its knuckles down or hands down in support around what it's doing, digging with the stick. So here we go into the next picture. This was found last year over by the pawpaw trees at the 400. Now, there's the stick in the hole, and you can see in the dirt that was piled out of the hole, there appears to be finger imprints on the ground there. So did we get lucky? Do they often put their hands down? But in these last two instances, it happened to have put its hand down in the soft dirt that was previously dug out of the hole. Well, you couldn't ask for a better situation than that. So Shane took some metal and built a dam around it and poured a cast of what appears to be finger holes in that dirt. And here is the casting of those fingers. Look how small they are compared to Shane's hand. You talk about getting lucky, but it started with recognizing that these holes were some kind of anomaly already, something to pay attention to and to try to find if you can. So here we get lucky. And so not only do we have 6 inch tracks leading to another hole, now we find a hole that's got a small hand imprint next to it. So this is the hand size that's relative to a 6 inch foot size. So they were both childlike, small. And for reference, Shane also has a hand imprint from another time, a previous time, uh, there at the 400, and we will go into that handprint. just to give you a relative difference in hand size according to foot size. So here's the other handprint that Shane was able to get in previous years. And this all happened under an overhang where he was putting a salt block or a mineral block. And so it got to where he thought that they were going up under there because of the foot tracks around this location. He was using that, and in his hopes was that it would leave some type of impression in that softer soil, reaching up under there to get the salt, the mineral block. And indeed, that happened. So you can see the hand splayed out there in that soft dirt as it had reached up into there. So here's another picture in the top right corner where Shane had casted that print. Now, in this lower corner, my my picture here is blocking the view, but that's Shane holding that cast imprint of the splayed open hand, and it is much larger than his own hand holding the cast there. So though that's the sized handprint that goes with a 10.5 inch track. So now we're starting to correlate. Not too many people have this type of correlating evidence where you've got a hand size that goes with a 6 inch foot track, and you've got a hand size that goes with 10.5 inch tracks. To me, that's a big deal. That is a big, big deal to have those type of things coming off this property. And it starts with having a property that not other people are going to. I mean, it's hard. If you think you can go into a state park or somewhere where lots of people go, I mean, it's going to be hard because you just can't rule out, other people doing things that and you misreading human activity. We have been so fortunate the 400. I mean, it's a locked gate property that we have to unlock a gate to get in on. So, can we 100% rule out, that people may not occasionally get in there somehow and be messing with us? I suppose not, but it's very remote possibility. All right, so are there other places where holes have been found? Well, first of all, we've got that story from that lady from California. So don't know if that's true or not, but she did report it. So that would be in California. These here are two pictures. This last March of 2023, we were down in Oklahoma, me and Shane and the film crew, and we were at the Chickasaw Park, which is where I had my encounter. And we were doing investigations in and around, and we talked to a lady who had a sighting not too far from where these pictures were taken. So where these pictures were taken was on Guy Sandy Creek, and you can see these are thermal pictures. So you can see in the left picture there, Shane and another tracker named Dave Soliday, and a couple of the film crew was working their way down the creek. And the picture to the right was further down the creek where we had predetermined that that's an area that we wanted to look into because you had a north exit and a south exit of the creek going through there. And it was a clump of forest, about maybe 15, 20 acres, with the creek coming in and out the north and south side that was isolated amongst farm fields. So it gives you a relative island of safety if you were a Bigfoot using these creeks to traverse through. And so we assume that it would be worth looking into. So I'm just kind of filming with my drone as they're kind of working their way down the creek. And indeed, when they get closer to this clump of forest, Shane finds some footprint impressions. And when they go up the bank, at the very beginnings of this woods, Shane finds a hole that is being dug with a stick, and he was gobsmacked. He was like, "Man, this is awesome!" Because we at this point we've only found him at the 400, and had another tracker with him. His name was Dave, Dave went ahead of Shane. Shane was explaining this to the film people and they were talking about it. And Dave moved on ahead, went deeper into the woods there at the beginnings of the woods, and he himself found one. So, so that made Shane very happy because up to this point, he had been the only one finding these holes. And so it's easy for someone to point the finger and say, oh, well, then Shane is tricking you. Shane is doing it himself. Shane is making these holes. So to have another tracker find another hole in the same similar situation, that was as big a deal as anything else up to that point. So, and that's been documented on the film. So that will be shown at another time. But so we had another tracker find another hole right after Shane found a hole. So that was in itself was exciting. So let's go back to another location. This is in Missouri. In September, we had a an outing with the Missouri Ozark Mountain Conference, who has and we helped set all this up in a location. A friend of ours who has Bigfoot activity on his property. So Shane goes out there with the organizer of the conference and her husband, and they go out onto this property, kind of scouting around prior to the conference and prior to the camp out that they were going to have. So they're up on this property and scouting around, and lo and behold, Shane and them find some impressions, and they find a couple of holes being dug with a stick still in it, and these are the pictures of those holes. And he holds up the stick, and you can see that there's moisture on one end of the stick where it has been used as the stick digging in the hole. You can see the moisture and the dirt on the end of the stick. It's fantastic. And while they are discussing this find, they hear a loud tree knock above them on the ridge above them, and they all look at each other. And so all of that is confirmation, not only with the knock that they were being observed, probably the holes matched the holes that were being found, not only in another location in Missouri at the 400 location, but also in Oklahoma, in a hundreds of miles away. So I think it's beyond speculation at this point what's going on, especially with the handprint that we've got next to the hole, the knuckle print next to the hole. Indeed, we have a situation where I think it's safe to assume that the juvenile Bigfoots are digging these holes. Now we can come to any conclusions, and this is where my OCD of thinking something through constantly uh, has me come up with some things that may or may not be true, but I think they're true. And bear with me on this. Most of the holes are found with the sticks either still in the hole or right next to the hole. To me, that suggests that digging the holes don't have anything to do with looking for food, looking for worms, looking for grubs. Of course, in the beginning, that was one of the things that we speculated. Me and Shane were trying to figure out, well, maybe we can see where they've, maybe you can find a hole in the side of one of those holes that where a grub gets pulled out, and maybe we can prove that they're digging for grubs and things like that. So far, I haven't seen anything like that. But the fact that the sticks are left where they are being used tells me that they are leaving immediately. Why would a little one have to leave immediately so quickly that it just drops the stick right where it's at and goes? I think it's because digging the holes is like the lady from 1989 out in California. The little ones were digging holes while mom and dad were doing something, while they were gathering some kelp and seaweed, and it was a time killer for them. But the moment it's time to move on, they've got to get up and move on and go with mom and dad. The handprint by the hole was found over by the pawpaw trees What if mom was examining the pawpaws, checking out the pawpaws, see if they were ripe and ready to eat? The little one was just biding its time, minding its own business, digging a hole with a stick. But when mom says it's time to go, drop the stick, we're going. To me, I think we're dealing with extremely well disciplined young ones. People, I know people are going to come at me and they're going to be like, oh, lots of animals have instincts and lots of animals can communicate and lots of these things and lots of that thing. But I'm telling you, we talked to a lady down in Oklahoma who said she witnessed a Bigfoot, slap her thigh, and two little ones that were gaining some distance away from her immediately ran back and each one grabbed a leg. To me, that tells me that slapping your leg is not generally going to be something that a little one would know means get your butt over here, unless there was some discipline involved. You know, I could be wrong, but it tells me that I think they get disciplined and at a very young age because mom and dad know the importance of being quiet and doing exactly what you're told when you're told to keep the risk of getting discovered to a minimum. So you're not going to convince me. I mean, of course, I'm going to keep my eyes and ears open for the evidence, but I see them as being extremely disciplined. And so far, the fact that they would leave the holes immediately and drop the sticks right where they sat tells me that because they're disciplined, and when mom and dad says we're going, well then you better drop everything you're doing, no lollygagging, and we're hitting the road. That's just what the evidence tells me. I hope you guys agree with me. I know you're probably not going to agree with me, but that's the depth that we try to think through what the evidence is telling us. These little ones are digging holes. I don't think they're digging it to find food. We're not finding evidence of that. They are leaving the holes immediately when they're supposed to. That tells me that they're just killing time, and mom and dad are usually doing something around them. And then when they're done, they're the ones that rule the roost, and it's time to go. That's what the evidence is telling me. Uh, but of course, you guys, please leave your comments. Let me know what you think. I appreciate your comments, and please share my videos. I think I just hit 900 subs. I don't know where this is going to end. I do enjoy this. I hope you enjoy it too. And that's it. Thank you.